The most popular Cold War game out right now is Arma Reforger. Don't let those modded gameplay videos fool you. The core of Reforger is very much a Cold War gone hot scenario. But just about a year ago, many of us in the tactical shooter space were actually looking forward to 83 the game. 83 was supposed to be the spiritual successor of the Rising Storm series, and wait a second. This game was originally announced pre-COVID? What? Yeah, the announcement trailer for 83 actually dropped in 2019, way back when we were all looking forward to a future wearing totally normal outfits to go shopping, and we didn't have to wage literal war for toilet paper. Antimatter Games, the original studio responsible for Rising Storm, had us all excited for their usual accessible realism. Their games combined hardcore gameplay elements with quick action, meaning that instead of Arma or Squad's walking simulators, we would typically be in firefights within 30 seconds from spawning in. But Antimatter was soon forced by their parent company to put the majority of their development resources into a second game, IGI Origins. This focus drained everything from 83 except one developer named Sturt Jeffrey, who is now working solo on 83. 4 years later, with IGI Origins not quite hitting the mark internally, Antimatter was closed down in mid-2023. Fortunately, this closure was not a surprise to some within the studio, and developer Tony Gilliam used the shutdown to recruit a team to create their own studio and purchase the IP rights to 83. With this, Blue Dot Games was born, and by the end of the year, 83 the game was back in full development. Well, kind of. Enter 2024, and the games industry was still in the midst of such a large layoff that there's literally a Wikipedia page titled The 2023-2024 Video Game Industry Layoffs. Over the course of 2 years, nearly 25,000 developers lost their jobs, with the most being in January, with nearly 6,000 all being cut in one go. Whether it was rising development costs, the shift to live service games, or consumers now focusing more on mobile or more accessible titles, the games industry was changing and the developers were the ones hurting.
The dog father always wins.
This was not a good time to be a brand new indie studio, or was it? The layoffs were actually a double-edged sword, and while this did allow many options for Blue Dot Games to attempt to recruit both part-time and volunteer work from developers who no longer had their own jobs, nobody was investing in games right now. With a sea of endless developers to choose from, there was no way to pay those developers to come work for them. Without investment, there was no money, and without money, there were no developers, so once again, 83 was put on pause. In a recent interview with the now CEO of Blue Dot Games, Tony Gilliam stated that 2024 was rough. But despite not having the funding they expected for any real development, they were actually able to get highly skilled volunteers to work on 83 in order to help get it to a playtesting state. These were highly experienced developers that had their own projects, had their own jobs, and were currently in active development with real games, offering their time to 83 because they liked the vision. Because of these volunteers, work was still able to get done in the background, and eventually playtests were had. These playtests were so well received by the community that the studio was able to start courting investors, but many of those willing to invest in games were simply parasites.
It's a very parasitic relationship, I think, is a way to do it. In fact, it's not even a very good parasite, because what parasite kills its host?
The deals offered for 83 the game were some of the most destructive financial decisions you could think of. One example given was that an investor may front something like $1 million to Blue Dot Games, but then they would force the devs to pay back $6 million before the studio would get to see any profits from 83. Once that $6 million was paid back to the investors would then continue to take a massive percentage, and when I say massive, I mean upwards of 75% of all profits, and Blue Dot would be left with basically nothing to show for it. This is unfortunately a story not uncommon in the games industry, and as Tony put it, thankfully they had the experience to say no, but more importantly, they could afford to say no.
You know, I'd just like to say to any publishers out there that are looking at 100% recoup and 75% up until 6x.
The year grinded on, playtests continued, and the devs made the announcement that they were in talks with a real investor and needed more playtest footage to try and close the deal. However, one playtester caught word of this potential investment and reached out to the devs saying himself, "Hey, I've got a lot of money. I love the game. Let me do it.
Publishers I think they've lost the connection of being about gaming and being a part of the community. That's why I think we're ripe for disruption, and especially from fans. You know, as a community and as gamers, we can and we should start demanding better.
With Kevin now fronting 5 months of development with his own investment, Blue Dot was able to get real developers who were paid real money to start working on their real game. And that is where we are today. This twice dead game is now officially alive with a lifeline from an investor who truly sees the vision for what they want to do. Now, this is all well and good. Money is in the bank and developers are currently working, but 83 has now been in development purgatory for over 5 years. So can we really expect this game to finally happen with this new investment? The short-term goal is to get a vertical slice of the game finished in order to show off to the world and potentially get more investment from publishers, as well as garner interest from players. This vertical slice would aim to showcase all of the features of the game in a nice simple package, highlighting why 83 will be different from the likes of Arma, Squad, or Hell Let Loose. Although development has stopped twice now, you can see that the game is really starting to take shape. Years ago, the devs used to post update videos called Through the Gun sites where they discussed development work, design, and answered community questions. And in these videos, we had small snippets of gameplay, but nothing like what we see in this recent trailer. This new video takes place at the Duga radar station in Chernobyl, and not only do we get some nice overview shots showing the scale of the map, but we also get first-person gameplay, which looks incredible and backs up the dev statement that they've had a working game for a while now. The devs state that we will have up to 100 player matches and what could be up to 7 different objectives spread across this map, and knowing that both tanks and smaller vehicles like Jeeps will be included, it looks like 83 the game will definitely not be a walking simulator with combined arms action all over the place. For infantry gameplay, we have a really clean HUD. Compared to devlogs earlier where we have a compass on the bottom, ammo on the right, and objectives up top, it could be an option to turn all this stuff off or on, or it could have just been used for cinematic purposes. And there's even a sequence here when an enemy is killed and the weapon that they had is highlighted. We can assume that this means any player can pick up any weapon on the ground, which is awesome to see. For playable factions, we have the British, Americans, and the Soviets with a nice arsenal of familiar yet unique weapons. The British have the L-34A1 Mark V submachine gun, the L-1A1 SLR, and even the L-101A2 or HK-53. For the US, we have what looks like the M16A1, as well as the shorter M653 carbine and the M60 machine gun. The Soviets, of course, have their AK, but also the AKS-74U, SBD, and PKM machine gun. Combat looks and feels what you'd expect from a Rising Storm game, and we can also see nice quality of life features like free look and even suppression and ear ringing from an RPG being fired. For all you squad players out there, no noodle arms here. Recoil seems manageable unless you're trying to Rambo with a machine gun, and there is a very short time to kill. Although we don't get quite the same insight in how vehicles will actually play, the M60 Patton and T64 make quick appearances, and if we go back to last year's PC gaming show where they released the Armor Showcase, we also get a small taste of what anti-tank weapons and command airstrikes can do. All in all, I think I'm drinking the 83 Kool-Aid, and I want to believe that this game will make it to the finish line, even if there are some delays this year. There's no reason this game should be even this far into development, and that's a testament to the people behind it. Blue Dot Games are making all the right moves in an industry that seems to be forgetting how it all started. But time is ticking, and with supposedly only now 4 months left of funding from Kevin, will it all get done? I don't know about you, but I want to believe. But what do you guys think? Are you a Rising Storm vet and don't mind waiting a bit longer? Would you consider kickstarting this team to give it the final funding needed to get across the finish line? Or are you patiently waiting on the sidelines, and if it happens, it happens? Let me know down in the comments below, and if you like the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more. But that's it for me. Until next time, peace.